My friend, welcome to the world's best kept secret podcast, a podcast that brings you exclusive interviews from experts all over the world with life-changing work that you didn't even know existed. I'm your host, Prima Jobs, a partner for those that are ready to take their life-changing work in front of those whose life or business depends on it. Please follow or subscribe for more. My friend, welcome back. Welcome to Best Kept Secret. Prima here with yet another guest that will blow your mind. Today, our conversation is all about creating life by design. I don't know about you. When I was born, my dad wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, or I had failed. And I very quickly realized that wasn't what I wanted. And so all through my life, I have learned to oppose authority, oppose nature, oppose the authority figures in my life if I felt like they were trying to make me live their life. And a lot of times in life, the best people who love you the most will give you the best advice. But unfortunately, it will be them showing you how to live their life. And if you're not stopping to think how you feel about what you're doing, you may end up living your dad's life or your mom's life or your best friend's life. It's unfortunate, but it's happening that people continue to let external factors dictate how they go about their day, what businesses they build, who they marry, what they eat, what they don't eat. And unfortunately, people have turned out to be unhappy, unfulfilled, and all of the things. So if you are there thinking there's more for me, I know I'm made for more, I feel like there's another level, but I can't seem to tap into it. Today is your day because our guest today is an expert at this kind of problem. How can you create a life by design? How can you live your life the way you want it and not be influenced by any other person? How can you stop learning about all of the gurus and all of the role models you're looking for and become your own role model? That is what I think about our conversation today. And so if this is your conversation, lean in. And I hope, my friend, that you've subscribed, because the bigger the podcast, the bigger the listenership, the bigger the game, the better the guests I can bring on. I cannot say enough what it means to me if you subscribe and rate this show. That aside, welcome to today's episode. I would love to pull up our today's speaker. Sasha, welcome to Best Kept Secret. I'm excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here and talk.
In a minute or so, what do you do? I know I've spoken, but I tend to sometimes speak, and the expert is like, no, that's not what I do. Oh, that seems too simple. So what do you do?
What I do is I help women specifically, but I can help men, is I help people reconnect back to themselves by using the tool of gene keys. And that is going to look very different for everyone because everybody is a different and unique person. And I can literally see that in your design. And so everything that she spoke of is exactly what I can help with. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to study yourself and take all of the time that what I find funny is that we're always online and we're always looking to what everybody else is doing and all the successes that everybody else is having. And if we took even a fraction of that time to sit there and study ourselves and our greatest potential, we would be rooting for ourselves. We'd be loving all of our posts. And like you said, being a role model for ourselves. I think that is the greatest thing. Like, how I can literally sit there now and be like, I absolutely love myself. I am 42 years old and I am so excited to where my life is going to go and where I'm going to be and how many people I get to help. And I want that for everybody, whatever that looks like.
Sasha, before we get into your story, and I kind of want to dig in and see how you started and how you even got to these things, but before we get in, explain to the listener how they know they absolutely need your work. What are the top signs that I am not living authentically and not living my best life? What are the top signs? Like, how does it show up that I am not doing right the work you do? Like, how do I know that I am off the track here?
Well, when I was asked, and we spoke about this, but when I was asked by my coach, what is it that I want? Such a simple question. And some people would say, oh, well, I want this car and I want this phone and I want this house and everything else. But digging deeper than a materialistic surface level answer, like, what is it that I want? And I kept digging and I said, and kept finding that, well, this is something my mom wanted for me, to go to school, right? To get an education after high school. And then it was to be safe in a marriage. It's probably what my dad wanted, right? And now being married and certain expectations of being what a perfect wife looks like, right? That was tethering my everything, all of my happiness was tethered to making somebody else happy. Nothing ever came back to me. I was just working my tush off to just sit there and make everybody else happy. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking like, wow, I can't really think of something non-materialistic that I want for myself and the type of happiness that I want for myself, or taking your dreams and being like, well, I can actually, do this. Well, I don't really want to be working at corporate. I'd rather own my own business. But that's not going to happen. Those are, again, tying expectations to living a safe life. There's a nudge that something is not sitting right, but you just want to play it safe so that way you can, live life safely. And I always remember this quote, and this kind of changed the trajectory of my life, which was, you don't want to tiptoe your way safely to death. That's what we're all doing. That's what I
Wow.
was doing before I came here. I cannot remember who said that quote, but I remember my coach saying it to me, is that you do not want to safely tiptoe your way to death.
Whoa. Hold on there. Like, the way you know that you need Sasha's work is if you feel like you're tiptoeing through life and day
Yeah.
by day you're getting older, but really you haven't done anything for yourself.
Yeah.
You have always done things because society said so, because your mom said so, because your dad said so, because your husband
Yeah.
said so, because your child said so. And you've not stopped to kind of do something for yourself, even though that might be conflicting, might look different, might look scary, might look risky. I love how you explain this point. But before we even get ahead into this, your genius, I want to kind of go into your story, like in maybe 3 minutes. How did you get here? Like, how did we get into doing this work? I know you weren't born doing this. So, how did you get into the work?
So it's a roundabout story, but ironically, it is my design to go this way. I basically graduated college with a degree in psychology. I was unsure where specifically I wanted to study in psychology. It was either going to be with children or forensics. I know that's so weird every time I tell people wildly different things. But in the meantime, I was with my parents, my mom, and she was like, you have to get a job. So I decided to go into education and become a teaching assistant. Well, that became a 20-year in between job. I was really good at it. I actually began my work studies to be a teacher. I went for my master's, but did not feel like that was for me, really. And I wanted to do something different. So I went into a network marketing company while still working in education. Um, and I found that I loved the product, but not so much the business style and everything. But I did want to try, so I hired a coach, a business coach. From there, we were able to, she opened up a coach school. And I was like, this is very similar to what I wanted to do with like psychology and things like that. And so I was able to join that coach school and become a coach. And through her practices and her bringing on Gene Keys and human design for business, um, I've been studying as well and learning all of those modalities as well, but really succeeding personally from it as well as business wise. And it was something that in my coaching practice, I was like, this is such a game changer. And so that brought me to my coaching business today.
I want to take you back again and kind of ask, like, when did you realize you wanted this work for yourself? When did you realize you were tiptoeing on your own life? Is that an experience you lived, or when did it click for you that you needed this work? You know, you needed to step out and look inside and start doing this work. Like, what was the moment for you that triggered this direction for you into doing the work you do? Because sometimes everyone needs a turning point. So sometimes sharing your turning point helps others realize that, you know what, it's high time, you know, I started. What was a turning point for you? When did you decide, like, you know what, I need to figure out these things. I need to master myself. I need to get into these things and really teach them or learn them or master them. What was that for you?
The smallest one was at the network marketing company because you have to think differently. And not everybody likes network marketers. And that was a different way of thinking. And I was always, let's be safe, let's have a foundation. The massive shift was when I started working with my coach because we at the time I was studying her program, which was Becoming Her is the Secret. And she was studying very closely before he passed away, Bob Proctor, and that was Thinking into Results. And that was a floodgate because I was able to, it opened something up. It asks you questions. It forces you to become this person that you were not before. And you start to realize, wow, that's not me. You start to unlearn a lot of things. It was a lot of unlearning before the learning came.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, well, wow, it's something as stupid as like, I don't like that. Like, or I don't like doing that. And yet I've been going along with it the whole time because my husband did. Or, like, I don't really like doing this, but all the ladies in the mom groups are doing this, just little things.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, it allowed me to be like, oh, wow, quirky me, I can create something based off of like something that I like to do. And I know that seems silly, but that's not always accepted. There's a lot of bro marketing and things like that are going around. And again, another external thing telling me how I should be running my life and my business. Um, and that's not the way that like she was teaching things and how we were going. And so there was these just little unlearnings and massive shifts that were going on um, through learning about my business and myself. And I think the second she took on the Gene Keys, it was like all these little missing pieces. Like you, instead of we're under this impression in society that you have to do this to then have this to then be this person. And it's actually not. We actually have to show up and be that person right now. So that way we can do the things that we need to do so then we can have. And there are just lots of unlearning things that are just not true. And my individuality began to come out and I began to just be like, I don't have to do it like everybody else. In fact, like there are people who like me just the way I am and doing what it is that I want to do. I'm not meant here to sit here and make people happy. I have to do things unapologetically myself and help people do that for themselves as well.
So Sasha, I am in the audience listening and I'm going, okay, that sounds like me. I think I am living my mother's life. I think. I am tiptoeing all the way. I am now 35, and God help me. This is the self life that she's talking about. I want you to kind of walk the listener through how did you reverse this auto conditioning, wanting to feel safe, wanting to be still in the good books of your those people that raised you, they tamed you. The teacher, everyone has contributed how they know how, but some of those people have not really helped you. They've helped you live their life. And so, how did you kind of walk that reversing of your life, your thoughts? Take us through that because there's a lot of resistance and we have identities. And now maybe I'm a mom of 10, and now maybe I've been a teacher for 10 years. Now you're telling me I can drop this. And now it's like you're telling me to have a new identity. You're telling me to write a different story. You're telling me to drop all of the things I'm known for, my degrees, my masters. And you're telling me to start from zero. And I don't know if you appreciate that for us on the other side, that is a lot of work, and we are trying so hard to keep listening. So, walk us through how that, how did you handle all the resistance, all the, like you're going this way and something is pulling you back? How did you go through that? Just walk us through,
Well,
because we would like to kind of think that we will get there, but it's just like faith right now. We are like, okay, Sasha, how? Walk me through that undoing of what I know I am and my identity and my story. Divorced 10 times, Sasha, how do what? Write a new story.
so
Yeah.
you are exhausted because this is exactly when everything came. It was at 35, and you're exhausted. And when I talk about reconnecting back to you, I actually have a whole thing on it. Is you're exhausted and you've been wearing a mask your entire life. And the thing that has kept you wearing that mask is fear. And it's this fear of what if I do this? What if I step out and everything else? And what will other people think? Okay. And so, and within all of that, that's just everybody else. Your fear comes from what somebody else is going to think. And no, it is not the easiest thing, but there's appropriate times to wear these masks, to how to behave. I'm, presenting myself in an appropriate way here, whereas with a girlfriend or somewhere else, I would obviously be different. But I didn't even want to do that anymore. It was exhausting. I have two amazing kids, and I've allowed my husband and my parents to dictate a life for me that was not meant for me. And what will start to happen if you are 35, between 35 and 40, that there's a nudge, and I encourage you to listen to it, however you choose to answer, but do not ignore it. Um, and what had happened was I answered that what if, and I said to myself, I don't want to be an educator anymore. And I don't want to sit here and be treated a certain way by certain people. I began to set boundaries. And what boundaries are isn't like this person has to change, like you have to change who you are. My boundary, and what a boundary actually is with people, that, and this was step one, is saying, if you do this went for my husband, for first and foremost, because I'm with him all the time. And we were not having the greatest relationship, was to sit there and say, I am not going to, if you do this, this is what I am going to choose to do. Me. So what actions are you going to take? The second thing was taking ownership. I know we don't want to do it. And I know people are cruel and people are mean and things like that, but it's your choice. if I don't like my marriage, or I don't like the way my parents or a friend or a coworker or a boss is treating me, what can you do? You don't have to stay in anything. And that was the thing. We keep our mind trapped in this. I don't have to like, and I said to myself, I don't have to stay in this marriage. That's my choice. There is always, always, always a choice. And the second I started to do that with a lot of people and places and things, my life dramatically changed. It went from, because my dad's from Guyana and my mom is from Trinidad, and it's a strong, like, they're very like, this is what you're doing. But it's drawing that boundary of being like, instead of now, like, bring the kids over on Saturday. I want to see my grandkids. It's now, are you doing anything on Saturday? Can I see my grandkids? Whatever. You might think that is the most insignificant thing, but for my family and everything, and that kind of respect for myself and for her as well, it's setting those kind of boundaries. It's taking off the mask and being authentically you, and you will lose a lot of people, but they weren't meant to be there in the first place. And that was the beauty of seeing, although there's been a lot of people that left and a career that I'm about to leave, um, what's on the other side of that is like, it's freedom. It's not having to try. It's being respected for my work, business wise and things like that. Like, it's absolutely amazing. And you show up. I'm finally showing up as my true self. And what that looks like is a leader, instead of saying, oh, I'm just doing what everybody else is doing. I'm not supposed to be doing that. And it's not wasting time. We all have to get to this point, but I want everybody who's 35 going into 40 being, this is your beginning. It's supposed to be your beginning. It's not supposed to be a crisis. You are now the master. You have knowledge and wisdom, and that used to be respected, and it still should be. We should not be in a crisis. I call it my midlife creation. And there's a big difference between what my husband and many other people are going through right now and what I'm going through right now. Wildly different of how somebody might be compensating with a car or thinking their life is over. And I am helping amazing women start a chamber of commerce. I'm here talking to you today. I'm sitting here and like just excited for the next thing that I get to share about, like, my life and Gene Keys, and helping, even now going so far as to help the younger women, so that way they get a better start at this
I
and
have to
recognize.
stop you there, Sasha. I have to stop you there. So, what you're talking about right now, to the person on this side where I sit, and I hope am I allowed to ask you stupid questions? Because I always have to ask
There's
you
no
to.
stupid questions.
Okay.
There's no
But
stupid
most
questions.
times behind the scenes, I ask the interviewer, like, am I allowed to ask questions that may sound stupid to you? Because I can guarantee you us on the other side of the mic, we are like, all right, Sasha, right now, I feel like you're telling me to jump off a 50-tower tall building. That is what someone
Or
here
way.
may say, okay, you may be in an abusive relationship, but what are you going to do about it? You may be in a bad marriage, but what are you going to do about it? There is always a choice, and someone is like, oh, it's been 20 years in this marriage. Like, you don't know, like, that's how we feel like our
Yeah.
skin is jumping off. And what I hear you right now is like, you can be in the midlife crisis, or you can be in the midlife creation. You decide.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that. Because what I'm hearing is that midlife crisis is what happens to people who live their life on autopilot and live gently and carefully through life and tiptoe their way to death. That's
Yeah.
what I hear you are saying, that
Yeah.
midlife crisis is the definition or a revelation that you did not stop, take control of your life. And now
Yeah.
you're going through life just like your great granddad did.
Yeah.
And I am now listening, like if somebody was in their 40s and they were in this thing they call midlife crisis, you are saying, no, it's a choice. You can be in the crisis or you can be in midlife creation. You can create a new life after this life that you were born into. You can decide, all right, my second life is going to be the life I create for myself. I want you to talk to that. And if somebody was like, all right, this is the tunnel right now, I need to go through this tunnel. You're telling me there is another life out there. Take us through that. Like, if this was my midlife crisis and my husband had walked out on me and my kids were on drugs and my mother-in-law was driving me nuts, what are the baby steps? I am interested, but I feel like you're telling me to jump off.
Yeah,
So
it's
what are the
because
baby steps there?
so I walked this myself, and a few things here and there that I've gone through. My marriage was not the best. It's still like a work in progress. It's not the best. But at the end of the day, for me, I know that I have a choice. So there's two things here. There's fear,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to identify that, which is what I help people do, is what is this fear? What is it that you think you cannot do? Two, this is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, but I did not want, I already know this path. I already knew what it was like to easily just kind of be a puppet to a puppeteer, whoever that was. You already know this. You already, if you're in a bad relationship, you already know what the continued path is. If you're in a job, you know where the next, for me, if I choose to stay, I already know what the next 10 to 15 years are. I'll be complaining about money and not being fulfilled and everything else. I already know. And you know this. You already know in your head what is going on now. It is fear and it is choice. Maybe you can't identify specifically what that fear is. That's what I help with. And it's really going in with, this is not going to be easy and it's not going to be hard and it's not my work to do for anybody and to take away any pain, because we need to walk through it. This is not this, and this needs to be your choice. What's on the other side of this is finding exactly who you were meant to be and your absolute potential. I believe it. I'm living it. No matter even the bad things that go on right now and that happen to me right now, I can sit and contemplate on it. My same fears come up that came up when I was 35 and go and beginning this journey. How it is that I show up now and look that in the face and say, all right, this is what we're going to do, because this is my job and this is where I need to be. The second you take everybody else, everything else out of the equation, but what you are here and what you're meant to do, your entire life changes. Think of every decision that we've made up until this point and how dependent it was on what somebody else thought or felt about us.
Okay.
And so
So,
the thing is to really get in touch with what it is that you were afraid of. And some of us are afraid of succeeding, ironically. We're afraid of succeeding. What if we were happy? That was my thing. Is that possible? I
mm-hmm.
mean, I was like a little like, I wasn't, I was like, can I? Like, I'm still like kind of, I'm not even anywhere near where I need to be at right now, but I'm I'm excited. I'm happy. And I know right now for everybody, because I was there 5 or so years ago, where it's like, oh, I don't, that maybe that works for her, but how is that going to work for me? And
Mm-hmm.
that's taking the first step, which is courage. And that's the courage to say, well, what if I wasn't in this marriage anymore? Or what if I did something differently and it changed my marriage? What if I decided to go back to school or go and do something else? What if I decided to go and get help or help somebody else get help for whatever? But we're only looking linear. Like we're only looking at that way, where I'm looking at, if I, had your design, I'm looking at you from a 360 view and
So let
knowing it's
me
only
let
that
me let
surface.
me let me interject a little bit here and kind of let's see if we are on the same page. What you're saying is I'm looking for baby steps, and you're saying the first baby step is the question, what if? What if I decided to change this? What if I decided I didn't want this life? What if I decided to do something about this? What if I could be happier in my marriage? What if I could have a successful business? What if I could be a master of self? What if I could be happier? What if I could be wealthier? What if I could be living a dream? What if I could be the next speaker? And you're saying the second step is make the choice that you're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing is don't worry so much about every other step in between, because I think it begins with you
Yeah. That's in the
listening to
mind.
that little voice of like, what if? And making the decision that, you know what, I actually choose a marriage that is more fulfilling. I choose
Mm-hmm.
to be respected. I choose this path. And like, just like you're saying, like, you know what, it's just even 100 times better to just sit in that place and say, today I decide I want a different life. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we get to decide. And I think we need to kind of, it's ironic, but we need to think with our bodies and listening more to what our body is saying instead of our mind. Our mind is here to keep us safe. Our
Mm-hmm.
mind is here to instinctually keep us safe, no matter what that is. But notice how we would not have electricity if somebody dared to think, what if there was a different way than candlelight? What if there's a different way to travel than a horse?
Mm-hmm.
Those people dared to ask that question, what if? And I dared to ask that question, what if I didn't have to be at this job anymore? What if I did start my own business? Or even and part of my design is kind of to try different things and to see what works for me. But through all
Mm-hmm.
of that, I've learned something, right? I said I went through network marketing, all of these things. But I asked, what if I had my own business? What if I went back to school and decided to be a teacher? What if? And I asked myself, what if? I went and I did. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but every single step of this way led me where I am right now. And some people don't even have to go through all those steps, but it's
So,
that uniqueness of people, that what is it? You're never going to know. You really will never know until you try. But you start to move different. You yourself won't see it. Other people will. Um, and you start to move different. You start to set boundaries because it's you get to decide,
okay.
right?
So now I'm kind of going, yeah, maybe I need to pray about it. Maybe I actually need to move forward. Maybe I need to think, I need to sleep and wake up and think again. Like I'm kind of saying, okay. But if I'm on the other side of the microphone, chances are I don't even probably know how to connect with my body. And so I am just using my mind to rationalize
Right.
and to think. And what I would love for you now to do is kind of take us through, if I were to say, okay, maybe she knows how. Maybe right now I just have to make the choice and reach out and she knows how. Could you take them through if someone came and they were maybe in a marriage of 10 years and it was abusive and they had 3 kids or 4 kids and they
Mhm.
just never got the courage to walk out. And now they're like, you know what? The worst of the worst, at least I want to kind of be better for myself, for my kids. Could you kind of take them through like what are like the steps of that process of coming from a world of autopilot, living your mom's life because she was divorced, you're also now thinking, oh my God, I don't want to step into that thing. I don't want to
Mhm.
confirm that curse. Can you help me and kind of tell me if I was to trust and come to you?
Mhm.
What is step 1 to step 3 or 5 of this revolution? Like, could you just at least give me a highlight of what it is?
Yes. So for any kind of abusive relationship, there is a hard stop where that is like counseling.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's something while going, either while going through that, or if you have done that and just putting that aside and just putting that disclaimer out there, and you've done that or you're doing the work, this can be done in conjunction with that. Um, what I first do is we go through what I call like a wheel of life. So this is on a clarity call. We go through a wheel of life from finances to parenting to relationships to everything and rating and talking. And I'm getting a sense of what is happening, how what's coming up in your life. Some people choose to like I offer to kind of get that chart, the gene key chart. If you choose to get that beforehand, they're different. It's hard to describe on here, but they're different spheres and they kind of go in a certain order. What they call the activation sequence, your core four, is basically what makes up 70% of who you are as a person. So it is extremely important for me and for you, most importantly, to know what those are. So what I do if the person has downloaded their chart, their profile, is I'll take, just to give them an idea of how this kind of works, is I look at their life's work sphere. And that tells me a lot, believe it or not. So it tells me what your problem, paradigm, whatever you want to call it, they call it shadow. It tells me that. You're probably already familiar and intimate with it, but now you have a name for it. For instance, mine is inertia. And then we take a look at the gift, which the gift in this, what they call the city. And that is something that you probably have touched on, but couldn't identify like your shadow. But it's something for the first time I was like, that's me. That's my potential. Because this is all this is your potential. It's
Mm-hmm.
the in you, but finally now somebody says, oh, you have all this potential and you're not using it. Now you know what the heck that is. And we go through that. And then there's a number after, there's a number of a gene key, and that kind of says a lot. We go into what that is and tells me a lot. And then it goes into your profile, your what they call, if you were in business, your brand, but it's basically giving a flavor to that gene key. And I can literally spend 45 minutes to an hour on that one sphere, talking back and forth how we're talking about this, because what ends up happening is it resonates completely because it's you. And now it's like you're kind of get, for me, I'll speak for myself. I felt like, oh my God, I felt called out. And then I was like, oh, but that's me. I can see where I was very, a gift of determination, because that's me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, when I'm in it, I don't give up on that. And I see where I've touched on that, but then kind of fall right back to that inertia status. And
Mm-hmm.
then the line one, because that's where the number after my life's work sphere is, this knowledge, this need to know, this need for safety and foundation, but to go deeper and deeper in knowing things. But the downside of that is thinking that I will never know enough. And so then you do nothing because you're afraid to share this. And that's something that we always, for me, I will always wrestle with, but I have to sit there and say, I know enough, and then go to the other side of my profile, which is a line 3, and say, we need to take action on things and we need to do things and we need to like go and be adventurous, discover, and be around people. So it tells you stuff you already know, and then parts of you that you didn't even know were there. And the part that I didn't even know is there, I am now fully stepped into. It's a beautiful journey of your activation sequence, your Venus sequence, and then your prosperity sequence. And I really take people on a journey, and they're going in, and it's letting them go to study this themselves. It is contemplation, it is prayer, it's everything. It's taking the information and studying yourself and rediscovering everything, and just being, and sometimes even being like, whoa, I'm playing this way too small. Like what, like I've felt this, that I could do it, but now it's confirmed. So there's a lot of confirmation. There's and then regular coaching and talking about that, like what's coming up, how can we sit in our gift? And when we do go back to our problem, our paradigm, our shadow, what can I do? That I know myself. So my problem now is never anything external. It's sitting there saying, okay, what's coming up for me? And now I'm asking myself, I'm not going to go and ask you or go and ask my friend anymore. I already know my whole design. I'll go to my coach for assistance for things, and just like a little bit of guidance of like, oh, this is coming up, but like, and I have to like go back, and this is something that I still study my activation sequence. It's not something you study once. It's a beautiful study of yourself over and over and over again. And you begin to show up more and more as the different gifts, because we have, we have some beautiful, unique gifts, and you truly see how unique you are. And there's even a couple of things where I'm like, darn, I'm not tolerating this anymore. You stand up a little straighter, and you're little by little, you're happier, and you start to kind of like start to go and explore different people in your life that you're close with. And it's changed the relationship with my son. We've always been great, but like for my children, and these are people just like how I have my shadows and gifts and cities, so does everybody else. And you become more empathetic towards that. So it's something that you start to stand in your authenticity, and then have that respect for everybody else, like, whether they're in it or not. You start to.
So let me ask you that. I want to pause a little there and kind of
Mhm.
recap, because you may be speaking one language and I personally be listening to something else, or the person on the other side with us is like, yeah, it's like Chinese. So I kind of
Mhm.
want to interpret in our language which we hear, so you can see if we are still with you. So what you're saying is we often are looking for answers from outside when actually we have the answers. And so what you're saying is that the work you do kind of gives me an awareness that I have answers to myself, because I understand myself better. Now I don't have to ask my dad what he thinks he would do. I don't have to ask my mom. I don't have to ask my husband. I have all of the answers. So what you're saying is that you begin to get answers from within. You begin to understand your boundaries. You begin to understand what maybe crosses you and what doesn't. And you begin to kind of stick up for yourself, because you know authentically that someone is stepping on something that is important to you, as opposed to rating people and calling it love or calling it discipline or calling it humbleness. You now begin to stick out and say, all right, son, I love you so much, but you can't be doing that. Like, that's not allowed. You can love your child and still stick yourself up and say, no, that is not going to be happening. You can love your mother-in-law, you can love your husband and still say, no, that is not going to be accepted, because is that what kind of you're saying? It will help
Yes.
you stick up for yourself, and people will respect you better. And the more respect people can give you, the more respect you can give them, the better the relationship can happen. But what I am picking from you is that ultimately, understanding yourself better allows you to navigate yourself better, allows you to make decisions by yourself, allows you to be a better person, because you are not going to let people step on you. And that allows people to respect you, which ends up becoming really beautiful, because you get what they want, they get what they want, and everyone is happy. Is that like what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And all I allow people to do is be them as well. So that expectation that others have always had on you, like you're just respecting each other. Like you're just respecting. No matter what, whether they are inauthentic or they're in their shadow or things like that, that's them. I don't have any expectation from them, because that they have to kind of be in their own design. But that's
So
pretty much it. It's
So
just.
let me ask again, because I am not the Jinkies expert and I don't understand this work, and I'm glad I
Yeah.
don't, because I think the person on the other side doesn't.
Yeah.
So now what you're saying is, do I get information to myself, or do I actually have the gift of understanding that there's different people? So by in interacting with people, I can go, oh, my husband is that. And
Sometimes,
I think my child is that. And I think my mother-in-law is like that.
sometimes you could have the same like things, but you're very unique. You're very,
Okay.
very, very unique.
So
So
does it allow me
my
to understand another
you
person at least
right.
enough for me to live,
Yeah.
coexist with them?
So once you get a nice sense of being able to see how this works, and trust me, one of my clients is like 19 and quickly got to like being like, okay, I can I can like study this and I get this. So literally anybody can do this.
Okay.
But the greatest thing is to study yourself first and to get through your own activation sequence and take a significant amount of time studying you. Because
Okay.
that's what it's all about. We're innately selfish. We love ourselves. We want
Okay.
to talk about ourselves. Just study you.
Okay.
What I'm saying is after like, because after studying myself and wondering sometimes, like about my son, let's just say,
Mm-hmm.
of how there's a stubbornness that it goes beyond just stubbornness. Like it really, he's got something. And looking at his gene key and then even looking at his body graph of the human design, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I get it. I get it. Like so for instance, I'll just go off topic for a second. With human design, anything that if you see it's colored in, there's different shapes and they
Mm-hmm.
mean different things. Your will center, your conceptualization, blah, 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 whatever.
Mm.
His entire body graph, except for one piece, is filled in. So that means that you're really looking inward. The answer is already there. You're not open for much. And he's completely filled in. So that stubbornness is like that his inner authority, his inner knowing of himself. And the
Mm-hmm.
one piece that's open makes him what they call a projector or an advisor in business. And so he's not meant to go, 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 go like me. He's meant to kind of look around at people, observe how they are, and then be able to speak on that. And that's it. And so you kind of look at somebody different. Why doesn't he want to like work so hard at school? He does in his own way, in his own time, and had schools been created differently or the way things are were different, he would thrive. But he doesn't have the energy for that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's respecting that. He may or may not go to college, but I am absolutely confident working with him, he'll find his way that surpasses anything he probably would have done in college. So that's just an example of how you
Yeah.
can look at people and
Yeah.
start to see there's ways that I compromise my husband. I've discovered that. I
Yeah.
compromise his life's work. That's huge. Why do we fight all the time? I'm
Yeah.
probably doing something that is stepping all over
Yeah.
something that, and he's not studying himself. But
Yeah, but I
I
think that
am,
it really helps you when you study because you can change everything. Even if the person wasn't studying themselves, just you knowing them gives them this awakening of like, oh, like life is reciprocal. And so I am the kind of person who goes, I study relationships, I study men, I study all these things. And my husband always is like, man, there's something about you that forces me to learn and be better for you. And I probably wouldn't get that if I wasn't showing up, knowing his gaps, his weaknesses, and kind of having the grace to say he probably doesn't have it in him to give me that. And that's okay. So I
yeah,
think that learning these things really allows you to not kill your spouse from something they can't do. Like,
yeah,
I am the kind of person who does one thing. Like, I do one thing. I am so single focused. It's not even funny. My husband does a million things each minute. And
mhm,
so I can lose my head over him not focusing, or I can just be at peace when I enter his office and he has YouTube playing, he has a podcast playing, he has a book playing, and he is talking to someone. And I'm like, really? But
yeah.
now I enter and I'm like, all right, genius, what's going on? And he just talks about it. But I feel that if
And
I
it's
didn't have the
interesting.
the learning that that's how he works, I probably would be like, can't you focus? And the truth is, he can't because he is not able to focus. He's genius, and so I really like this what you're saying because it really allows you to coexist with another person. At most, it gives you the peace to live with your children, to live with your husband. You don't have to divorce nobody, but at least it gives you the upper hand, knowing how they are wired and knowing that maybe some of these things they are doing are not malicious. It's just who they are. I think that relationships can significantly become better if one person decides to understand what the other person is going through. So I really like what you have going here, and I've had fun. I think that you need to connect with Sasha and learn more about her work. By now, you have seen what it's about. You have an idea. I have some quick questions for you, Sasha, that probably will be a minute each question, and then we'll wrap up things and tell people how they should find your work and all of those things. What do you wish you knew before starting this work?
But I wish I knew my design and how to use it. Like, um, we could always wish in hindsight, but I really wish I could have started this work
Hmm.
beforehand. I know that we have to go through our experiences in our life, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and everything, but I truly think everything would have been wildly different.
Mm-hmm.
But I truly believe these are the steps that, it's just knowing that you had to go through all of this stuff, especially my design, which is frustrating. But I've learned to accept it and kind of say, oh, these are all learning. It's all learning. But
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had that tool. And that's why I enjoy when I do get moms that kind of ask their daughters to kind of work, 19, 20.
Mm. I can see how
It,
that's life changing. Like, this
yeah,
to your
that's
daughter,
important.
they don't
Yeah.
have to do all of the mistakes. Wow.
Yeah, and then just to kind of they're more aware, and especially at such a susceptible
Mm.
age,
Mm-hmm.
where I definitely could have seen in college where oh gosh, I was an easy target for like a lot of people that maybe inadvertently were in their design. There's some people that are, they're living their design, they don't even know it, like at their highest frequency.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of us that need that help and it was just easier to kind of like just follow along and have somebody puppet our life around and just say, all right, it's okay. Like I wish I knew it sooner, but I'm grateful that I have it now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So
because
let
it's
me ask now a question from that. Like, at what can people use this for bad? Like, at what age is this kind of, if you hand this to a teenager, can they like
probably,
at what level or at what level of maturity is this something that you think people can use? I imagine people could use it for manipulation. So like
oh,
what
well,
do
yeah,
you think
well,
is
see, that's,
yeah, what do you
yeah.
think is, I want to talk to that because I could think my kids get born and I'm going to teach them this stuff. Like, because now I'm really curious and I'm learning it. And I think like if kid,
It's
I'm like,
something for
at
manipulation.
what age is it going to be safe, you know?
So as a parent, like right now with my kid, my daughter's very like she's 16,
Mm-hmm.
very highly intelligent, but very logical. So
Mm-hmm.
she's very like poo-pooing this and whatever, and I would have to go in, and there is scientific we could talk about frequency and DNA, like Richard Rudd, who's the creator of Gene Keys, and Ra Uru, who's the creator of human design. They have a scientific thing to it. I personally cannot, that is not in my design to even go down, even my intellectual line one, I cannot go down that rabbit hole for my daughter. So the best thing that I can do for my kids is to learn their design. And just like how we talked about, is to
Mm-hmm.
kind of be empathetic towards that. So from like, I
Mm-hmm.
would say like from birth to whatever, you'll see it yourself. There's an innate thing with your, as a parent of you knowing your kids and then saying, oh, I get it. Like they're either that's just not where they're at, and you're kind of compromising that by asking them to do certain things or in a certain
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think like a really, somebody like my daughter who's like higher up or whatever, from like I think 16 to even up, you can start to kind of, if they're open to it, it's really the way, how I would teach it, and you can kind of like in a loose way kind of parent this way, is just kind of talking about like their shadows and their gifts and things like that. But this is why it's that inner work, is just, it's like, a slow study of yourself, really looking in. It's their
Mm-hmm.
experiences,
Mm-hmm.
because there are people who've had almost literally the same activation sequence, numbers, everything. And they have a great marriage. They've had a different set of parenting, and yet we have the same gene keys, and we have the same shadows and everything else, but it's still different. We're
Mm.
still different because we grew up differently.
Definitely.
There's a
Mm.
different kind of thing, but we can kind of align in how the traps, similar traps that we kind of fall into and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
So so when you're really young, you just be aware of what it is that they, like I don't push, oh, college, college, college for some, where my husband can't even understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to be really empathetic toward my son. Like I have to sit here and say, he's going to do something really big. It's going to be different. I'm not going to force him to do that where he's miserable and that's not what he wants to do. Um, but it's really a study of self. They know the experiences in school that they're going through. They know how they
Mm-hmm.
feel about like you or your husband, and they just will kind of start to take that self-study and kind of, you know, at their
Mm-hmm.
leisure because they're young. But what I
Mm-hmm.
am finding is the girl who is 19 and kind of really experiencing all of this stuff is really into it. Like really like, oh my God, I see where this comes up. Or I find out this is why she couldn't understand why she couldn't get along with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And her, what they call your evolution, it's the sphere after your life's work, and it's where your biggest issues are. She has the gene key 8, and Richard calls it a rebel with a cause. So you're not meant to sit here and live in this, I'm just using this as an example, but like maybe like you're not meant to live in a small town. You're supposed to be different. You're supposed to create something
Mm.
completely different. So if
Mm.
you're living in middle America and you want to do basketball and modeling and this is all the stuff that we would innately say to somebody, you can't do all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, no, yes, she can. It's in her design. And by you telling her that she has to either stick with one thing or do something else, you're holding her back.
Mm. She's a maverick
Where,
by DNA.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. So I sit there and so you got to build that up because there's one of them is like mediocrity. She can't sit in mediocrity. She has to try to do whatever it is that she's going to do and that specific gene key is, when you're in that gift you can manifest that. And the
Mm-hmm.
second she kind of changed her thinking, started looking for different schools that would accommodate all of these things, all of a sudden things are coming her way
Mm.
because she
My-
changed her mindset from mediocrity to being that rebel with a cause
I
and
really,
being
yeah.
different.
I really love this topic. I think that the more people know themselves, the more, the more power you have, the more
Yeah, it's
you
such a
can
thing.
influence how you feel. I've had fun, Sasha. We have to wrap up for this one. But if someone was listening in and going, I love her, I love her work, I would love to learn more. How can they do that? Are you on social media? Do
I
you,
will,
yeah.
yeah, I will send a link. I have a link for that clarity call that we talked about. And that will probably, I can send that for the show notes. I can be found on IG on Sasha Harris _ Greenidge.
Mm-hmm.
and LinkedIn at Sasha Greenidge, and just reach out. The most important thing is to get on that clarity call. And if anything, and
Mhm.
learning that one thing coming out of that and kind of going through that, it would at least pivot you and put you in the direction that you need to go, whether we work together or not. It's just so important to just kind of help guide people to kind of pick them up, so to speak. It's not something to kind of learn, except it's you. It's you. Like that's the biggest thing. And living that now, I'm just so happy. Nobody can it is that simple for me now. I know it sounds callous, but if my husband and I just, if the problems or whatever, they don't go away, like I know that I have a choice to make. And if
Mhm.
I don't like my job, which I'm making the choice now, it's come to an end.
Mhm.
I'm making a choice to move on. I never would have done that 5 years
Mhm.
ago.
Mhm.
I would have just found ways to get another job on top of what I have to try and make up for something and worked myself into an early grave.
Mhm.
I, so
You want to connect with Sasha? She is on Facebook. She's on LinkedIn. Are you on LinkedIn? I hope so. She's on
yes.
Instagram and she's on all social media.
Mhm.
Sasha is Sasha, and her second name is G for garage. GREENIDGE. Everything you need to know about Sasha, everywhere to connect with Sasha, will be rightfully in the show notes. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on a podcast, if you're watching this on another place, be sure to check the show notes because you will have all of the links that will lead to the amazing work that she is doing. As a recap, what I understand from her work is inherently we have the power to decide, to make the choices, to design a life on our terms. Whatever the condition you're in, there is always a choice. But if nothing else, what I picked from her work or from what we discussed today is that you always have a choice to learn about yourself and learn about those around you. So if it's a relationship, you always have a choice to learn about yourself and learn about your partner. If it's in your parenting, you always have the choice to learn about yourself, to master yourself, and learn about your children. So, if anything, you always have the choice to become a better person for the other person. And there is nothing as rewarding as being the person that really understands what another person is going through. I think that is the highest level of influence, being able to understand what the other person is going through and being empathetic to somebody else because of how they're wired, even though they don't do the work. I think you can change a lot by just being the better person, by just being the person who is aware. I think you can change a lot of things by just being the person who is willing to do the work that the other person is not willing to do. And I think if nothing else, then the gift that Sasha gave us today is that it is our choice whether we live a life that other people have decided for us, whether we get into midlife crisis and tiptoe our way to death, or whether we pause and say, what if I could change the trajectory of my life? What if I could put an end to my misery? But what if I could have a better life? What if I could have a better marriage? What if I could have a better health? What if I could have a different life? What if I could be the best I can be? And I think the question for me is why not? Why not you and why not right now? That is the thing I learned from, I think, Jim Rohn. Like, why not? Why not you? And why not right now? It's been an amazing conversation. Sasha, what did I leave out that you want to close with?
Oh no, that was pretty much that was beautifully said. And just, I look forward to hearing from many of you. And, if this really resonated, um, you know, really make that choice. It's a tough, hard journey. But what is out there on the other end, it only benefits you. And it's something working with me. I make this as painless as I possibly can help you do this. But again, it is your work. And I just love helping people kind of really see themselves. Like I will be able to see it right away, but then to finally have that look of like, I see myself and I want to be that person, that highest person. That's what I want to really help people with. So I look forward to hearing from a lot of you.
I think what Sasha is saying is she can only empower you.
Yeah.
Step into the thing you already are gifted to do. She can empower you to master yourself. She can empower you to go and change your life. And you only have to say, yeah. You only have to say, I'm ready. I make the decision now to make a U-turn. And I am so honored that you stayed with us all of through the hour. There is a million podcasts that you could have been listening to. You chose this one. And I sincerely hope that we made this count for you. I sincerely hope that this session moved you forward even by one step. And if that happened for you, I have one request. If you could please subscribe. 10% of the people who listen to this podcast never subscribe. And I know you're not in the 90%. I know you're in the 10%. So I would love for you to subscribe to this channel. And I would love for you to rate it. And I would love for you to review. If you feel like this work helped you, review it. And finally, this is a show for best kept secrets. What that means is I like to bring on people with amazing work who the world needs to discover. And if you feel like Sasha is a best kept secret because you don't know Sasha, because you feel like people need to know Sasha, share this episode with one person, just one person that you believe needs to meet Sasha. I appreciate you. I honor you. I celebrate you. And I will meet you again very soon in another episode. That is it, my friend. To listen to more exclusive interviews like this one, simply go to the world's best kept secret podcast.com and select interviews based on preferred topic.